Right, well, good afternoon, everyone. We'll make a start. Item 1, membership of the committee. Thank you.
Hello, Chair. Councillor Lawson substituting for Councillor Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just say, on my left, I've got my legal advisor, and on my right, I've got my planner. Item 2, minutes of previous meeting. Now, I understand there's a couple of slight alterations or additions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's in relation to item 17, which was the public rights of way at Huddersfield 231 Nevermore. One of the people who did a deputation has contacted us to say that the name was recorded for deputation was spelt incorrectly. It was shown as Angela Bradbury and it should be Angela Bradley. So we will make that amendment and acknowledge that. They also said that the title of the report, which was shown as Huddersfield 231 Nevermore Huddersfield, should have in fact read Huddersfield 231 Nevermore Farm Huddersfield. I've spoken to the Public Rights of Way officer and legal. We have no issues with including the word farm in the title, so we will also make that amendment. That's it, Chair.
Somebody move those to record. Thank you. Is that seconded? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Item 3, interest and lobbying.
I've been lobbied on item 14 on the agenda. I was rung up by Mr. Uppal. This was in August last year, after the last committee meeting held to discuss this matter. And I just gave him some general advice about planning matters. No, I didn't give him advice about this particular application.
Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Page 113. I'm a member of Owen Valley Parish Council, but take no part in their planning matters. And pages 31 and 45, I've been lobbied, but no action taken.
Councillor.
None, Chair.
Councillor Lawson.
Page 79, Chair. No action taken. Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths.
Page 57, no action taken.
Councillor Uppal.
Thank you, Chair. Page 57, no action taken.
Councillor Ola.
Thank you, Chair. Page 57, no action taken.
Councillor Sokol.
Yeah, Chair. Item number 12, page 57. I received an email last night from one of the objectors, but no action taken. Yeah. Item 13, page 69 to 78. And I had the email from the agent and the applicant, but I advised them, because as a member of the planning committee, I can't determine any predetermine the application, so I advise them to see the ward councillor. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Howell.
None, Chair.
Councillor Hall.
Page 79, no action taken.
Item 4, admission of the public. Five, deputations and petitions.
None received, Chair.
Public question time. Councillor McGuinn.
Yeah, I've received a question from a member of the public who's asked me to put this question to you as chairman. It's about the Castle Hill application. You'd be glad to know, Mr. On October the 12th, 2017, the Huddersfield Planning Committee, item 17, says that the report is to be noted. Why was a vote taken on the principle of development in Castle Hill? I have looked at the minutes and there is no record of a vote.
I'll have to look back at the minutes myself to see whether there was a vote taken. Pre-applications are not decisions by the council. They are noted, but they are done in public so that members of the committee can see what the schemes are that may come forward as planning applications. But ultimately, decisions are made on planning applications in accordance with a development plan, unless there's other material considerations. So no decision has been taken.
No votes taken, no decisions taken.
Items 7 and 8, 2 site visits. Item 9, Local Planning Authority appeals.
Thank you, Chair. There were 2 appeals, both officer decisions, and both were dismissed. The decisions are within the committee report. Thank you.
Right, planning applications now. Page 31. And that's also on page 45 as well, because these 2 plans are G's Garage, which is more or less together.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Adam Walker. I'm a planning officer for the council. I'll present the first 2 planning applications on today's agenda as a single item because they essentially relate to the redevelopment of a single parcel of land at the former G's Garage site. They both outline applications for residential development, with the point of access the only matter that's been applied for. The applications were deferred at the previous committee in December at the applicant's request to address outstanding highways and drainage matters. Members carried out a site visit at that time. This aerial photograph shows the site. The land edged red is the first site, and then the second site is this parcel of land with the purple edging to one side. It's a redundant garage site, garage buildings at the front with some hard surfacing and grassy area to the rear. There's residential development and grazing land surrounding the site. The 2 application sites make up a single housing allocation in the emerging local plan, and so considerable weight is to be afforded to this when considering the principle of development. The applicant submitted an indicative layout. The coloured image shows the first application, indicative layout, which shows 20 houses. It's a mixture of house types, although this is purely indicative at this stage. Layout is reserved. And then the second layout on the other site is that parcel which shows 7 dwellings on it. Again, numbers are reserved for future approval, but the indicative capacity of the allocation in its entirety is 29 houses. The applicant submitted a master plan as well to show that the scheme has been comprehensively planned. Now, Section 106 contributions will be calculated on the basis of development across both application sites, in line with the Council's emerging master planning policy. Applicants applied for the main point of access, a single point of access off Newhay Road, and Highways Development Management consider that to be acceptable. Scale, layout, appearance and landscaping are all reserved for future approval, but officers are satisfied that an acceptable scheme can be agreed at reserved matters stage. It's considered appropriate for detailed drainage design to be secured by condition, and conditions are also recommended in relation to noise mitigation and ecological issues. In summary, the principle of development is acceptable on this emerging housing allocation, and the applicant has demonstrated that an appropriate access can be formed to serve the entirety of the allocation. Both applications are therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Jeremy Child, who's the agent for the applications.
Good afternoon, committee. Just to say, we managed to get the 2 landowners to cooperate on this one in cognisance with PLP 5. Been a redundant site for a while, but there are 2 main access points, being the haulage yard, which is where we propose to take the bulk of the houses off with the new adoptable road, and then a little private driveway off the existing what was former petrol forecourt. You will recall the scheme getting deferred primarily because Highways wanted to do a road safety audit and just some confirmation on some visibility, which has now been sorted as the officer reported in his report. and it's an allocated site in the emerging plan. All matters are reserved apart from access. So I would just urge committee to go with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Members. Councillor Sims. Councillor Sokol.
I wonder if we could just have a look at the access points, because I think when we went up on site, that was the critical thing. What have they done differently to when we... Well, on the plan, for the access and egress of the site. Because it's a fast road there, isn't it? We were concerned, you know, just where it was going to go. Right.
Through you, Chair. Jamie Turner, House Development Management. Yeah, we asked for an independent speed service on both approaches. And they came back as 85th percentile weather speeds of 31.9 miles an hour and 34.0 miles an hour. And then on the provided sightlines that are adequate for those, there's 47 metres in one direction, 51 in the other. So we're more than happy with that. Thank you.
Councillor Sokol.
Yeah.
Are you going to second this?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to say, but you moved and seconded as well already, yeah? Because this application was different on the last meeting, only because on highways region, on sideline there. But when you read the report there, yeah, those issues have been resolved, and they have submitted the road safety plan as well, yeah. So I think it, because there are still some speeding issue there going on, because even the highway has admitted in the report, yeah. And there is a speeding is from 30, then it build up on 40 miles an hour, but some going on 66 miles an hour, yeah. So can we put some speeding restriction on, instead of 30 to 40, it should be 30 all the way up, yeah?
Thanks, Chair. I don't think the site's large enough to warrant any changes. There's only been one one injury accident there in the last 5 years. And as I said, the independent speed surveys that came back were only just above 30. The average speed was actually below 30. The same, we've got one of the speed indicator devices up there once every year, I guess. And last time it was there, the 85th percentile speeds are almost identical to what they found in the recent independent speed survey. They were 34 miles an hour. The average speed was 30 miles an hour, vehicles going past. So, well, vehicles will speed as will anywhere in the district. It's not something that we would want to add to this. Thanks.
Yeah. I know this site has been derelict for many years. You know, it's an eyesore. The people go there. So I'm happy to. You already moved and seconded. Happy to support the application to improve this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I must admit, I didn't believe there'd be a lot of debate on this one anyway. It's hardly controversial. Did you, Councillor Bellamy, you wish to add something?
Thank you. Something does need doing with this site, and yeah, it has been derelict for a long time. Are the reserved matters going to come back to committee? Is one of my questions, because I would prefer if they do, because I mean regarding play areas and that sort of thing, because I know the nearest play area is actually across New Way Road, so that could be an issue if there's going to be nothing in there, because it's obviously going to be across, and you know, for 106 and that sort of thing. It is a fast road, and I will agree with that. Don't go on what the speed indicator device has told you, because it wasn't working for quite a while. It was way out. And I can tell you that because it told me I was doing 16 miles an hour. And when I looked at my clock, I was not doing 16 miles an hour. And I'm not going to admit what I was doing. Sorry. But it is a fast road, and I will admit that. And it is so easy to go well above the speed limit. If you've come off the motorway, you don't sort of realise, especially with it being downhill. I understand that putting in some sort of speed restriction is going to be extremely difficult there because it is 30 that bit, it's supposed to be. And I do know that there has only been that one accident, which I believe was somebody actually walking the dog, I think, from what I remember. And you do get quite a lot of parked cars there. So, yeah, generally, yeah, I am supportive of this because I do think something does need to be done, but I would like, if possible, if the reserve matters and the layout and the 106 could preferably come back to committee, if that's possible.
Councillor Lawler.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think everybody said what I was going to say. It's a derelict site, and we're bringing it back into use. I agree with what Ken said, and I'm happy to second that. I just would like to make a comment about the Section 106 that I personally be watching very eagerly when that comes back.
This is just for, I'm taking these separately, page 34 to 44. Please, Joe. And now, page 46. All those in favour? Right, we'll move on now then to page 57, which is 33 Woodside Lane, Fixby.
Thank you, Chair. Adam Walker, the case officer on this application. The application is for 3 detached dwellings within the garden of 33 Woodside Lane. The site is a large detached property within its own grounds, situated at the end of an unadopted road. Previous application for 5 dwellings was refused by this committee in September last year, and members visited the site at that time. This plan shows the refused layout, which was for 5 large properties set around the existing house. It was refused on the grounds of the amount of development, with the proposals being considered to be cramped and out of character with the surrounding area and resulting in an unacceptable intensification in the use of Woodside Lane, which carries a public byway. It's also refused on the grounds of the impact on protected trees, which lie to the north-east of the site, and also the potential impact on bats. So the reasons for refusal are the starting point for the assessment of the current application. This is the proposed layout now. It's for 3 houses spread out within the site. This results in a much more spacious form of development that's more in keeping with the character of the area. The reduction in the number of dwellings also means a lesser intensification in the use of Woodside Lane. There's now only 1 dwelling next to the protected trees, so the proportion of garden that will be affected by shadowing from the trees is much reduced. The potential for there to be pressure to prune or fell the trees is diminished. As with the previous proposal, the dwelling has been designed to avoid main windows facing onto these trees. Additional ecological information has been submitted with the current application. It's known that bats use the site. There's a small roost within the existing house, and there's a roost outside of the site quite close to it. It's considered that the layout provides opportunities for bats to continue to access the adjacent woodland over here and these trees here as foraging and commuting routes. And so on that basis, subject to conditions as referred to in the update, including controls over lighting of the site, it's considered that the impact on biodiversity is acceptable. Officers consider the revised application to have addressed the previous reasons for refusal, and despite the objections received, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can I just check? Do we have a Susan Crowley here? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of a resident who lives at number 35 Woodside Lane. I'm a planning consultant. My name is Susan Crowley, and I'm here today to object to the development on behalf of my client. Members have been advised that the current application has been determined using as a frame of reference the reasons for refusal set out in the 2017 decision notice. Indeed, the officer's report to members assesses the scheme by making direct comparisons with that previous refusal. Weighing everything in the balance, the officer concludes that the scheme, as revised, should be granted planning permission subject to conditions. We disagree with that officer's recommendation because matters, as we see it, are not straightforward on the facts. We assert that the development being proposed fails to address the reasons for refusal set out in the previous 2017 application, specifically in relation to trees and the impact on ecology. The report misrepresents entirely internal consultation responses to members, specifically those of the ecologist and the landscape team, both of whom object vehemently to the revised application. We also consider the development relies on those using Woodside Lane to have access to privately owned land in order to accommodate adequate turning facilities. And we consider the application fails to meet the requirements of the Development Management Procedure Order, specifically as it relates to the matter of the red line boundary. Ultimately, the development as revised fails to take into consideration representations made in the public interest, and if members are minded to support officer recommendation in this instance, we consider that any decision issued will be open to a judicial review. We have already made this clear in both representations to the officer. The report describes the development of 5 dwellings to members, and in fact, as you can see before you, it's a development of 3 dwellings. And as a result, we consider, given the sustained objections by the landscape team and the ecology team, the development remains contrary to the policies within the adopted development plan. Having reviewed the amended plans, we've arrived at the conclusion that it will have an adverse impact on trees protected with a TPO, biodiversity within the site, highway safety, the setting of a building that we consider to be of townscape merit, and levels of amenity within the site for future residents. The local authority has not taken out a proper balancing exercise in this instance, and the decision-making process has lacked sufficient transparency. It is our position, as we've stated, that on the basis of the information before you, any grant of planning permission will be open to a judicial review, and our client is willing to go down that route. Thank you.
Jeremy Sharp.
Hello again, members and chair. You'll recall seeing this one before, recommended for approval, 5 dwellings. You felt it was a step too far. Obviously, sort of take on board what the lady's just said. She has sort of overlooked the fact that additional information has been put in and recorded in the update that again satisfies officers. I think it's quite simply a threat to the committee to try and sort of derail the process with the threat of a judicial review. The fact remains, it's the second time we've been with a recommendation for approval. The applicant has listened to committee saying it was a step too far before, listened to the planning officer's views and input to come up with an acceptable scheme. You now have a scheme for 3 dwellings which maintains spacious grounds, plenty of landscape, is more than 15 metres away from the ancient woodland. All the council consultees are happy with it. So I'd kindly ask you to disregard the objectors' comments which don't reflect what the officers and the consultees have actually produced, and go with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, committee.
Members. Yes, Councillor Paul.
Can we just get a response from officers to what the planning consultant has raised, particularly around the ecology and landscaping?
Through you, Chair. When this resubmission first came in, it was showing 2 houses next to the protected trees, which the trees officer objected to. There was a revision to the plan which deleted this plot, put another house over here, and on that basis the trees officer was supportive of the application. It was enough to remove his objection, so there's no objection from a trees point of view. In terms of the ecology comments, they are essentially summarised in the update which was published yesterday, and subject to the conditions which have been recommended by the ecologist. There are no objections.
Yes, Councillor Sokol, and then Councillor.
Chair, this application was refused last time only on the grounds of overdevelopment. That time we thought 5 dwelling are too many, and this overdevelopment it might affect the lane, narrow lane, going especially the junction of Bradford Road. Now the officer have come up with a recommendation because the applicant have reduced this overdevelopment from 5 to 3, which the officer think is a right number those development. I'm sure that if we go along with the officer recommendation, there won't be traffic much as you supposed to be five dwellings. And so even the highway concerns the application has addressed the previous reason for refusal. So I don't see any reason not to go along with the officer recommendation to approve the 3 dwelling. Thank you.
Do I take it you're moving the officer's
Yeah,
recommendation?
Yeah.
Councillor.
I'll second that, Chair. I mean, obviously, when we first went on site visit, it was overkill on that site. The applicants listened, which we're pleased about. I've looked at the ecology and I've looked at the tree application, etc., and that seems to be A-OK now. Although we're being threatened with legalities, I think that, as far as I can see, and reading from the report, that we should be A-OK. So I second the application, Chair.
Councillor Ola.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As my colleague said, it was initially for 6, which would reduce to 5, and now we're down to 3. And I think one of the comments that came out of the last committee was that it just felt all a bit too close. With this kind of a design, there's a lot more, obviously, space. It's a lot more spread out. I too have had a look at the reports, and I can't see anything untoward. Thank you.
Councillor Opal.
Sorry, can I just ask one more question, Jamie, just in terms of highways, you know, coming on to the lane, it is a bit tricky because you've got obviously Bradford Road and you're turning in. So could you just say something about that? Because I know a few residents have raised concerns about.
Yeah, through you, Chair. We just took a balanced view that it is only 3 more dwellings, so I mean there's probably the 10 there at the moment-ish, so there haven't been any accidents again on coming in or out of that junction. The sight lines are more than adequate in both directions, so we're comfortable with the additional dwellings. Thanks.
Right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show.
That's approved.
Page 69, 215 Birkby Road, Birkby.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Emma Thompson. I'm the officer presenting this application. Members have a full report and update in front and have had the benefit of a site visit this morning. A series of photographs shows the prominence of the site and its relationship with Birkby Road and the wider area. In addition to the proximity to the occupants to the rear and the protected tree which is over at this side. Development proposals are for the erection of a large side extension, single-storey extensions to the front and rear, and 2 dormers to the front. The 2-storey extension would project from the gable by 6.3 metres at a depth of 11.6 metres, which includes 4.05 metres projection from the rear elevation at ground floor level. This element single-storey here, 2-storey to the side, single-storey at the front, and 2 dormers. At first and attic floor level, this will be stepped in 2 metres in order to reduce the depth of the property. As said, the development includes 2 dormers to the front with a gabled roof running at right angles to the host property. The front elevation of the side extension has been designed with a large tapering overhang canopy with a total additional projection of 1.2 metres. That can be seen here at the front. The materials proposed are brick with white panels of white render, timber cladding and concrete tile roof. Relevant policies are set out in your report. Development should be visually attractive and contribute to a sense of local identity, promoting good design, ensuring that the form and scale represents and enhances the townscape. Furthermore, extensions should be subservient to the original building and minimise impact on residential amenity of future and neighbouring occupants. It's considered that the design scale and materials of the development proposed would not respect the existing character of the building or those within the local area. In addition to these concerns, officers consider that the scale of development would have an overbearing impact on nearby occupants. Concerns have been raised in this respect, and this is further emphasised in the photographs as I showed previously. An application improved in 2016 demonstrates that it is possible to provide additional accommodation that provides with policy, and that's the plans of those. To conclude, officers consider that the proposed development would not adequately respect the character of the existing dwelling or its surroundings, and it would result in undue harm to the amenities of neighbouring occupants, and as such, the recommendation is to refuse the application with reasons as set out in your report. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Michael, Chair, the agent.
Chair, members, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Trust your site meeting this morning has been useful to see the extent of the extension packed on site. We need to explain why the scale, design, building materials used as reasons for refusal is unreasonable. Basically, privacy distances, overshadowing, access, everything else has been already met with the local and national planning policies. Highways have no objection, tree officers no objection. The neighbours have also happy with the modified scheme. A similar extension, as you can see, has already been approved and set the design principles, but the architecture is very basic and bland and do not meet with our clients' needs. The plot can accommodate at least 2 dwellings because of its size. This land only has one large host building and extension, and the terminology of 3-story as claimed by the planner is actually incorrect. It's actually 2-story and attic roof space, and the building is not taller and it's the same height. The former site extension is 4.8 meters wide. The proposal is 6.3 and basically is only 1.5 meters wider than the previous approval. So it is in fact further away from the footpath and also further away from the trees, and still leave enough garden space for our client to enjoy. The planners did not originally mention about the building materials. Bugby Road, as you can see, has a mixture of architecture styles and building materials. We have designed the building with a mixture of render and bricks so that it breaks the massing and provide interest to the building. Our clients did compromise on the proposed roof design and ridge running through, but the planner would still not approve it. The final proposed roof design has turned 90 degrees so that it create a visual focus and create exciting architecture form. So our clients are proud owners, unlike the former owners who have obtained
30
planning
seconds.
and take on a commercial decision and sell it on. This extension will be built to a high specification and provide a family home for our client. However, our client would prefer this design to be approved, but if it assists with a positive decision, then our client would be happy to reconsider changing the building materials to all bricks and also the roof running through.
Thank you.
Just one second. Councillor Easley, are you wanting to speak on this? No, we've got the applicant to speak yet. Okay, so it's Mr. Navinda Alpal. He's the applicant.
So, good afternoon, Chair, members, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to share why we need slightly bigger modified plans to the existing scheme. I'll focus on 3 areas: our needs as a family, extended family and attic space, and then general design. Our family is larger than the previous residence, and hence the existing approved scheme did not cater for our needs. My wife, my 2 boys, and my mother, who's not well, will stay and make up our family. It's in our culture to look after our parents, and hence the need for the additional space. We require the additional 2 reasonably sized bedrooms on the first floor, so the whole family can stay on the first floor, and hence why we decided to extend sideways, where there was little impact on the neighbours. Without these modifications, we'd have to use the attic space much more, and one of my sons would have to live there, which clearly I wanted to avoid. Extended family. My sister comes up from Birmingham to see our mother, my niece, nephew stay with us, and my wife's parents visit us from India. This is why we wanted to repurpose the attic space so they can come and spend time with us. In our current residence, they sleep on the floor, so with these extensions I can provide them with a bedroom, which I would really like to do. The roof needs to be built anyway. The adding of the dormers allows for headroom and natural daylight, and I think they look better. Without this additional space to the side or to the first floor, we would have to probably have more dormers to the front and rear, which I knew wouldn't really look appealing to neighbours or planners. In terms of general design, the space can handle a bigger house, but we have already scaled back out of respect to the neighbours and also looking at the planners' requirements. I spoke to the neighbours about the roof, and they suggested to turn it as it is 90 degrees to the front, A, to protect their privacy, and B, to add grandeur to an already great street scene. In terms of the planners' comments, we're not changing the boundary walls, the house is not taller, the trees will be protected, and we have the support from our neighbours who I'm constantly in communications with. And in terms of the design and materials, as we've said, it's to individual taste, but happy to be flexible on that. We were never given any comments regarding that earlier. We have been prepared to negotiate with the planner, but informed any changes other than the original design will be rejected, so hence our only option was to come to this committee. I'm born and bred in Huddersfield. My wife has a local business in Lockwood. My kids go to school here. This is where we want to build our home. I want the property to look nice as well as be functional, and these extensions will change the appearance
30 seconds.
and dramatically improve the street scene and uplift the standards. I do believe I'm well and truly privileged to have this opportunity, and as a family we'll get one chance to make these changes and convert this house into a home, and also for Kirklees and Kirklees to be proud of. Therefore, I seek the members to support the proposals. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity of speaking. Just very briefly, both myself and Councillor Burke have been contacted a number of times regarding this particular application. We've heard what the applicant had to say and the changes that have been made over time since the first refusal. He has gone about it in a very great way in speaking with his neighbours on what he's planning, and from what we can gather there's very little objection to what is planned. So from our perspective as local councillors, we're in support of the applicant, and we don't think that this application should be refused, and we should say that it should be granted. Thank you very much.
Members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. As it stands, this application is quite easy to see how officers got to this conclusion. It is a large development. We've heard from the agent today about the opportunity to rediscuss. Now, unfortunately, it's come quite late, which is regrettable. But I think it's becoming more and more standard practice to take people up on that offer to renegotiate even at this late stage. And if we can get to some kind of halfway house, forgive the pun, but if we can get to a halfway house where both sides are kind of getting somewhere to what they want, then I think I'd like to defer this and take that back to officers to have that discussion. So I move to deferral. Thank you.
Is that seconded? Yes, Councillor Upwell. You're seconded deferral. Can I put this to the vote rather than us carry on any further? I want to get a feel here. Deferment. All those in favour, please show. Whenever. You've got that unanimous.
Against, unanimous.
Right. That's
Items deferred.
page 79. Brigsteer, 402 Birkby Road, Birkby.
Thank you, Chair. My name is William Simcock and I'm the case officer for this application. 42 Birkby Road, known as Brigsteer, is a large detached dwelling situated on the north side of Birkby Road. These are the elevations existing, and these are the existing floor plans. It is accessed by an unadopted road which continues to serve 5 other dwellings. The application is for a 2-storey extension to the southern elevation of the property here, and this allows you to see it in context. To be built against the southern wall of the property, tied into part of the western wall. Application reference 2018-90978 was considered at subcommittee on 20th September last year and was refused, at the time contrary to officer recommendation. The current application was first taken to subcommittee on 13th December last year. The original set of plans for that application showed a single-storey extension to the northwest corner, here, slightly reduced from the old application, in addition to the 2-storey one. And these are the plans for comparison. The second extension, the single-storey extension, would have been here. And that showed the layout in context of what it would have looked like. The current plans, deleting the single-storey extension, were submitted in December, and the application was deferred at December subcommittee, so as to allow committee members, third parties and officers a reasonable amount of time to look at the new plans and form a balanced view on them. I will briefly show you some photographs of the site, although most committee members, I expect, will already be familiar with it. This is the entrance, with the application property in the background. The front entrance of the lane. Some views from Birkby Road. This is where the extension is to go. An alternative view at a different angle. And some views within the site. Again, this is the site of the proposed extension here. And just looking up the garden to the north, this is where the single-storey extension would have gone. And this is where the single-storey extension would have been placed if the old scheme had been passed and implemented. And just a general view looking down the access lane towards Birkby Road. In assessing this application, the original committee decision is an important material consideration and has been given substantial weight. It was considered that the first revision to plans with the single-storey extension kept but reduced in length did not result in substantial change, and if it had been determined on this basis, recommendation would have been to refuse. The latest amended plans, which had deleted the single-storey extension, leaving just the 2-storey one, represent a substantial change in the overall scale and footprint, as set out in the report. The single-storey extension was, of the two, the smaller and less visually prominent to begin with. However, its deletion still results in a significant change in the amount of footprint added, as can be seen in the table in paragraph 10.9 and in the officer's report. One or two representation letters have called the single-storey extension a glazed link. In fact, it would not have been fully glazed. The earlier set of plans indicate it would have had a tiled roof and some stonework in the walls, although quite a lot of glazing as well. The 2-storey extension would be seen in the context of a road frontage that lacks any real uniformity in house type, siting and design. Most houses are set back quite substantially from the highway, although there are exceptions, and there are garages and outbuildings that are also built quite close to the highway. Again, looking at the location plan, this helps to give an impression of the overall context. In this context, it is considered that the two-storey extension would not seem out of keeping or overbearing, especially so as it would be subordinate to the existing dwelling in terms of height. It is therefore considered the extension would have no detrimental impact on visual amenity or the street scene, for the reasons set out in the report and update. I would at this point like to briefly comment on one of the grounds of objection, the claim made by some third parties that the extension would create or worsen access problems. This argument depends on the assumption that the extension would result in more vehicles visiting the property and that some of these would have to carry out unsafe reversing manoeuvres onto Birkby Road in order to leave. In response, I would ask members to note that the amount of floor space to be added at ground and first floor is still relatively small compared to the existing floor space at ground, first floor and second floor. It would therefore be difficult to demonstrate that a development would materially intensify the use of the lane or access, and there is in particular no reason to assume that large commercial vehicles would be visiting the site any more than they do now. Regarding the layout within the application site, there is a double garage which is to be retained, and there would be room to park another 2 vehicles at the southern end of the paved area without any existing turning space being affected. I would also point out that the block paved area provided is slightly bigger than that which was shown on the plans for the original approval in 2004 here. It is relatively small and there is more landscaping included. In officers' considered professional opinion, it would not be possible to justify a refusal on the grounds that it would cause a material increase in highway safety problems or to defend such a refusal in the event of an appeal. The application is therefore recommended for conditional approval. 2 conditions are recommended in addition to the standard ones on plans and materials. One is that a construction management plan must be submitted and approved so as to ensure that any construction traffic and the parking of contractors' vehicles doesn't cause any disruption or highway safety problems. The other is that for the avoidance of doubt, permitted development rights are removed in respect of any further extensions or outbuildings. Thank you, Chair.
We have Sheila Harrison.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have lived at 406 on the lane for many years. We now know the history of the planning abuse with this property, and the council has also been misled. The previous owner of 402 and 408 told us he was thinking of building a bungalow in the garden of 408. We never received any householder notices when plans were submitted in both 2003 and 4, nor did we receive, or 404, the Article 7 notices referred to on the 2003 application. That form wasn't put on the planning portal until 16th of January this year. Nor were we aware that our private square had been erroneously quoted in the 2003 application as being available for turning. That consultation response document wasn't put on the portal for public view until May 2018. This alleged availability of a turning area we now know was a major consideration in finally approving a 6th house on a private drive, contrary to the Highways Directive of 5 properties. This private square is definitely not a communal area and the lack of it must be taken into account with the current application. There have already been parking problems when there have been just two small vans and a skip within the plot. There is allegedly ample parking room and space for a 3-point turn on site. Why then have any 4th vehicles been reversing out and reversing onto Birkby Road or turning in our private property? These are facts. A 2-storey, 45-bedroomed house was approved. A 3-storey, 7-bedroomed house was built, flouting its removed permitted development rights. This application will have double the number of bedrooms and residential capacity of what was originally approved. Plans must be appropriate for a property's lifetime. Kirklees and the current owner will have no control over the number of future residents. 100% of the residents object to any further development of this house. Councillor Burke has had concerns and input throughout. The planning officer himself actually wrote in December that it would not be in harmony with its surroundings. The only difference from last September's refusal is that a small rear lobby has been removed. How
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you.
It's beyond belief.
Okay, thank you. Carol Harden.
Do I need to press? For a house with 9 habitable rooms over 2 storeys. The house was actually built with 12 habitable rooms over 3 storeys. It's a huge house, a third bigger than it should have been. If you approve today's application, it will create a house with 14 rooms, up to 9 of them bedrooms. It is inconceivable that a house of this size, on this subdivided plot in such a prominent position siting above the main carriageway, would ever have received planning permission either then or now. The other properties on the lane are 2-storey houses or bungalows with an average of 7 rooms. According to a Kirklees Highways Directive, a private lane should have no more than 5 houses. This is not an arbitrary figure, but recognises that services needed for an extra house and the traffic generated by more people, cars, visitors and deliveries. A 6th house was built and bigger than it should have been. Adding to this will create the equivalent of a 7th house on the lane. How can that be right? In previous reports, the single-storey extension has been referred to by officers as small, very small, a lean-to extension, whose impact on visual amenity is minimal. The applicant themselves, despite what we've just heard, has described it as a lobby and a glass linkway, not a habitable room. In today's report, it suddenly becomes a significant change to the planning merits of the scheme. Officers should not be able to change reality for the purposes of the recommendation they have already decided. In September, committee members thought the house was already big enough, and the reason for refusal was that by reason of their scale and in the context of and bulk and footprint of the existing dwelling relative to its plot size and those of surrounding houses would amount to overdevelopment of the site. The important word here is houses. The report only refers to the neighbouring property, 408, which is not representative of surrounding houses, because 402 was built in its front garden. We commissioned an independent chartered surveyor to get out his tape measure and give us the right figures. The building density at 408 is 19.4, 402 is 17.
30 seconds.
Approving this application would make 402 20.4, but the average on the lane is only 12.8. This is not a race to the bottom. It is not a comparison between 2 houses. An objective report, not loaded in favour of the recommendation, would have compared with the surrounding houses. In the light of your decision in September, there should be no further development on this plot. We know and you know that officers did not like your decision in September, which went against their recommendation. Please be consistent and please don't be taken in by this attempt.
Thank you.
Jennifer Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I am here to actually support the decision already made by this planning committee to refuse in September 2018. I believe that you will have all seen the Google image which I circulated and Councillor Burke also circulated, who has remained totally consistent in his reasoning for a refusal, despite what the report may infer. The image shows the sheer size and bulk of the property as it stands today and backs up the committee's view that, quote, the scale of the development relative to its plot size would amount to overdevelopment of the site. Consistency says this must still be the case. This three-storey house is already visually assertive, and this would only get worse if it became larger still. It already looks much more imposing and out of scale because it's much higher than the road level and has a very prominent road frontage, which will be more prominent when the road is widened and gets faster and altered so that all the trees are gone. Replacement tree planting will not conceal the extension. None of the other houses on Birkby Road are in this elevated position, and so even though some may be as close to the road, they do not have the same visual impact as this proposal. This is the most adverse impact of the proposal in terms of public amenity and street scene, and the committee recognised this in September, and this should remain consistent. The property is already a three-storey house, much larger than any of those of the 5 from the private drive which already were there when it was built, which gained their access. Planning except it is larger than permission was granted, so the owner of the property further down Birkby Road, who also built higher than the permission granted, might feel a little aggrieved that he was forced to lower the roof. There should be consistency in treatment of applicants. If the character of the area is actually being considered, then the plot size should be compared to all surrounding houses and not just 408. The report focuses only on the character of 408. The new house has already affected the character of that house because it was built in its front garden. There is no justification for making that adverse impact worse. It is the visual impact of this extension that weighs against approval, and this aspect has simply not been adequately taken into account in the officer report. I would ask you to endorse your original committee decision, show consistency and recommend refusal. Thank you.
Robert.
Press the button. It's on, is it? Okay. Thank you, Chair. I would like to discuss overdevelopment and access issues. I would first like to thank the committee for refusing the application in September. This revised application has insignificant changes, and I would like to see consistency with your approach to overdevelopment. I would remind the Council this property is already a front garden grab in a very prominent position, which is why its permitted development rights are already removed. This application is submitted as the applicant claims to have bought a property smaller than their needs, quoting the third floor rooms are unusable. Firstly, this floor should not be there. It has never been approved by planning. And secondly, you're being misled again, because here are the Rightmove particulars, which show 3 double bedrooms, a shower room and a huge gymnasium in these so-called unusable loft spaces. When we quite correctly point this out on the planning portal, the response is very heated. But members of the committee, the truth has no temperature. This property's very foundations are built on deception. Our advocate uncovered a long list of planning abuses, including submission of erroneous documents, omission of minimum plot size covenants, and incorrectly claiming brownfield sites. Do not be misled again. The 10-year period may have expired to resolve some of these improprieties, but mistruth has no expiry date. Access on this single-file private drive, which I jointly own, is very limited. Further expansion equals effectively another property, and our advocate states without requesting further written access approval will be unlawful. When this property finally circumvented planning refusal, conditions were stringently applied regarding improving access, no reversing onto the lane or highway for safety reasons. None of this has changed and will only be worse once alterations are made at Birkby Road Junction. Permission is denied to alter or remove any walls for construction vehicle access. Your own infrastructure officer, Mr. Steve Hanley, has acknowledged after review and in writing our ownership of the lane, including the entrance from Birkby Road. Our independent advocate and surveyor, our ownership of the lane boundary walls. Property 402 has no ownership or part ownership whatsoever, and even in the property title, rights of way are silent, as the lane owners were never consulted for approval during planning subdivision. To consider any construction management plan that involves destruction of my property would start a legal process. I would not want to wish that pain or cost on any committee member present here today. And equally, the members should not, and hopefully should apply common sense and moral duty, because you should not be subjecting me to that either. Thank you.
Good afternoon. At the Planning Committee meeting of the 20th of September, members considered planning application 90978, which was for a single-storey and a double-storey extension. Officers would have approved this under delegated powers had Councillor Burke not asked that it go to committee. After due consideration, the application was refused. Just 2 weeks later, the applicant resubmitted the plans, having reduced the size of the single-storey extension by just 1.3 metres. Officers were again going to approve this plan through delegated powers until Councillor Burke became involved. He had to explain to planning officers at senior level that because it was such a recent committee decision to refuse it and the change was so small and did not address the reasons for refusal, that it should go back to committee. In addition, should there be an appeal, the Council would have to defend the decision that you made to refuse it. Officers didn't really have any choice but to agree with his assessment and then made a recommendation to committee to refuse. The applicant obviously didn't anticipate this and removed the small single-storey extension from the plans so late in the process that the committee had to defer a decision to this meeting. Councillor Burke's involvement is really important. The latest report makes it look as though his only concern was about the construction management plan. He has ensured that it has come to committee twice rather than be approved by officers, has acted as a link for us to planners, and has said that I can tell the committee that all Lindley Ward councillors have had concerns about the proposals right from the beginning. That's not reflected in the report. In September, after a comprehensive site visit and after listening to all sides of the argument, Councillor McGuinn, prior to proposing a motion to refuse, gave 4 reasons for doing so. These were: 1, it's not in keeping with the area, it's far too large. 2, it's an overdevelopment of the site. 3, there's an issue of the ability to park cars on the site. 4, there is a requirement that cars enter and leave in forward gear, which may not be possible if there are too many cars for the site. During the brief debate that followed, Councillor Pinnock, who seconded the motion to refuse, said that it was already a very large building and that on balance it should not become any larger. The motion was carried by a substantial majority and the plans were refused. The removal of a small glass linkway at the back of the house does not change the bulk and size of the 2-storey extension on the Birkby Road side. Councillor McGuinn's assessment is still accurate. It's still not in keeping with the area. It's still too large. There are already parking issues, and I have seen a skip wagon reverse out onto Birkby Road from the premises myself because there's no room on site. Please be consistent in your decision-making and refuse this application. Thank you.
Councillor Eastwood.
Okay, yep, thanks for letting me speak again. Obviously, this is a very passionate case before you, and quite contentious, which goes back quite some time. Again, consistency is the key here. Not a lot seems to be different from what was refused previously. What I would draw to your attention is that somewhere in the comments of the applicant is that none of the local councillors had raised any objections. Well, going way back, I think if you look through the notes, then it came to committee with objections from those local councillors, and those objections still stand, be it overdevelopment of the site. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Becky Black, who's speaking in support of the application.
Be really brief. Good afternoon, Chair and members. I am the former joint owner and resident of 402. My family, my extended family, lived there for over 24 years. We had good neighbours. All neighbours supported each other. There were no disagreements. I don't recognise what has happened over the last 12 months to create such toxic relations. Misbah and Shazad have a close extended family who want to improve and adopt their property within planning regulations, and they need certainty going forward. Thank you very much. Yeah, can I go on and do that? This is a statement from Misbah Akhtar, mother of 4 children and joint owner of 402 Birkby Road. This is a small extension to our home. The planning officer has verified that the footprint and appearance of neighbouring property is significantly greater. We have worked closely with the officer to ensure committee concerns are addressed. Councillors are being misled by abhorrent lies from 3 households. Issues such as parking and turning facilities are untrue. Stage photos implying that we cause disruptions are non-planning related and fabricated to hinder the proposal. Due to this unreasonable behaviour, Highways are looking into adopting the lane and imposing measures to protect our family from speeding neighbours. We remain respectful and have good relationships with some supporting neighbours. Number 400 Prince Roy, directly in front of our home, commented that the proposal adds to local character. Number 404 of our lane refused to object despite pressures. The church has raised no concerns. Highways and tree officers also approve. Please note that none of our ward councillors have raised any concerns with the revision, which now have further reduced the roof height. Councillor Burke recently made a site visit and had no concerns. Online comments have been removed due to their abusive nature. Our decorators have faced aggression. Illegal drone photos were submitted to the council. My young children should not be photographed. Also, the council recently removed online photos of my home, taken by a trespassing neighbour, which coincided with a theft. All of the above are under criminal investigation. This vendetta is unfair and not neighbourly.
30 seconds.
One can only guess why. To conclude, I quote the planning officer who has twice recommended approval. The extension harmonises with the area and positively adds to amenities. As a mother, I am trying to provide additional space which we need to meet the needs of our children and elderly parents with mobility issues. Our quality of life has been ruined since March. Hopefully you can approve today.
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you.
I've got Mr. Ian Black.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Ian Black in support. I used to live in what is now 408 since August 94 and in 402 since October 2005 until May 2018. Hence 24 years of living on this drive. I ask myself about the objections today and why they weren't made during my occupation. I hear objections about the potential number of residents. My wife, myself, 3 sons, including 1 disabled and daughter-in-law, and for 11 years my parents-in-law, hence 8 residents. There was never a concern. Number of vehicles, this varied, but we had up to 8 vehicles on the site. There was never an objection, never a concern. Drive and access. Yes, the drive is owned by 2 neighbours, but it seems the objectors are unaware that when there were 5 houses on the lane, the planning permission required us to widen the lane by 4 foot to allow vehicles to pass in either direction. That strip of land is owned by me. Permissions to use that were never withheld by me. Why would they? Or by the 2 shared owners? Never withheld. In 2005, Mr. McGill of 412 and myself paid for the whole of the drive to be resurfaced. A schedule was drawn up showing maintenance costs. But since 2005, only I have maintained the area from 402 to the road, including leaves, weeds, snow and general maintenance. There's never been one objection or even adverse comment. I ask myself, what is the difference between the current owner, Shazad, and myself? Both were fathers of young families. I was some time ago. Both want to look after their parents and extended families. There is no difference between my occupation over the last 24 years and these proposals. The original building, you've heard a lot about that. I am not a property expert. I engage an architect and to supervise construction. There is an NHBC certificate for the house. It was built by a master builder and will pay for all resident Kirklees inspection. The plans also show the actual number of windows on the second floor, 1 casement and 2 velux. I would say, in summing, this is a small extension relative to the existing footprint. Please allow a young family to realise their dream of making their house their family home. Thank you.
Shahad Akhtar, who's the applicant.
Good afternoon, committee. I am the owner or joint owner of this property. I will be living here with my young children, wife and parents. The extension will allow members of the family with registered mobility conditions to live comfortably. The application has had previous officer support. Since then, we have reduced the footprint significantly by removing the single-storey extension. The double-storey extension has a reduced roof line height to ensure it is not overbearing. The proposal fully complies with UDP policies and national planning framework. Quoting the planning officer, this represents a substantial change to the planning merits. The revision makes a significant material difference. The proposed road widening scheme will incorporate planting of mature trees and fencing by Kirklees highways, in which a legal document will be drawn up to ensure that this is done by the council. This will screen the entire road-facing boundary above and beyond what currently exists. The screening will ensure our privacy is protected and is given a visual and acoustic concealment. Please consider who will this extension actually be visible to. This is a 4-bedroom house, and we are looking to add 1 further bedroom for elderly family members. In order to harmonise with the existing house, matching stone and slates will be used. Please note that the local character is made up of individually designed dwellings from 3-storey homes, commercial buildings and apartment blocks, very in close proximity to this house. There have been claims disputing legal right-of-ways and boundary wall ownership. This is simply untrue and is an attempt to create confusion. The boundary wall of this house is owned by the house. The wall belongs to the house and was paid by the previous owner to be built. I hope I have provided you some sort of insight, and I trust you will see the merits of this application and follow officer's recommendation to approve. Thank you for your time.
Jeremy Sharp.
Good afternoon again, committee. Last time for me, fortunately. Obviously, listen to what the objectors said. Just do not understand why this hornet's nest has just suddenly sort of come up, and there's a vociferous objection against a guy that wants to live there with his family. It is a house extension. It's true to say, yes, Councillor Burke did have some concerns, hence the committee request the first time. I wasn't here, but I understand that there was quite a lot of debate among members before arriving at their decision to refuse, and they considered it was a step too far. All the sort of civil matters apart and the bad blood with neighbours, etc., should be out of the members' minds. That's nothing to do with planning. It's a house extension, as the officer's put in his report, which is consistent with the area. There is no issue with extended family living there, and to be honest, I just do not understand why there is the level of objection there is. given it's a house off a private driveway, we're not altering the parking, we're not materially increasing the intensification of use, and I just struggle to understand why neighbours aren't happy with it, with a change of owner. I just will put it to members, having debated this before and considered it a step too far. We've come back, we've made a substantial reduction in the footprint and the height, you know, and I would urge members now to go with the second officer recommendation to approve. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said you've had your turn. Members. Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was on the committee when we refused it last time, and I think we're all really unhappy that it was too much on that site at that time. However, the applicants listened, and I think he's come back with, in my mind, something that we can approve. So I therefore move officer's recommendation to approve this. Chair, thank you.
Councillor Stockwell.
Yes, Chair. We have listened both sides, both objector and supporter, on this application, their views. Well, in fact, this application, as Councillor Sims have said, last time we refused on the grounds of overdevelopment. Now, the applicant has amended the application, completely deleted the single-story extension. Thus, they address the issue the members be raised there. Now, the officer's job is to listen the views of the both objector and supporter, and have to keep in line the planning guideline. So officer has weighed that, and he come back with the recommendation to approve this application, because I have no other ground to refuse this application. If we refuse this application, I'm sure the applicant will take it to the appeal, and they will. If we lose the appeal, it will cost a lot of money to this council. So we need to be very careful. So Councillor Sims has moved the application to approve it. I second it. Thank you.
Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Lawson.
It works. As soon as Ken presses it, it works. I'm just after a little bit of clarification, I think. Listening to the speakers, we've been told it's a 4-bedroom house that had 8 people living in it, and then applicants increasing it by 1 bed, but yet again it's a 7-bedroom house and it's going to be a 9-bedroom house, so I'm completely confused on that. And it were also mentioned about highways adopting the lane. Is that correct as well? Can I have just some clarification on that, please?
Through you, Chair, I'm not aware of that proposal. It may be the case, but I'm not personally aware of that being. It was, yeah, but that's not to say I know.
Councillor Lawson and then Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I've got some very big concerns here about this application, about it being recommended for approval. It was recommended for refusal last time for the reasons that we've read in the report. On page 87 of our report, on point 10.9, we have a table there of the total footprints added by each of the proposals. Now, the refused scheme is 45.9, so 46. There was a scheme D and then a scheme E. The scheme E, which is the one in front of us today, I believe, is 30.7, which is some 2/3 of that refused scheme. So the question to me that I have in front of me is, do I accept 2/3 of something that was refused? If it was the other way around, if it was the smaller of the extensions that was being proposed today, I don't think I'd have any problems. It's not. It's the larger. It's the one that leaves us with 2/3 of the refused scheme. So, notwithstanding the mover and the seconder,
I would stick with the original refusal of the original application and refuse this. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Reminds me a bit of one that we did in Batley last year sometime. This was a big detached house. I think the thing is we're going to have to get used to the fact that we're going to get more and more of these applications for what are already large houses. And I think the thing is, eventually you've got to say enough's enough. You can't keep extending. It'd be a good thing if we could condition some of these applications to say, you get it, but that's enough. On this occasion, I'd be okay going with officer's recommendation, but I really would like to know how many rooms reckon to be in this house. Is it 8, 7, 15, 5? How many houses are there officially down this road? Because I think I know a little bit where Donna were going with it. We know that we had some problems in my area where 5 houses had been built and somebody says, should there be street lights down it? So it's what's officially recognised as adopted or unadopted. What's criteria for it to be adopted? And I think I'd like to know a little bit about this, if we can have that answer now, but bearing in mind what has been said and what officer's recommendation is, I'll gladly go along with officer's recommendation. But I would like that there's the comment about conditions on saying enough's enough, noting if we can. I risk my case.
Try and clarify that. Okay. So set aside the recommendations and the mover and the seconder and the counter move. William's counting up the number of rooms, so we'll come to that point. Fundamentally, on a drive that serves more than 5 dwellings, the council would usually seek to adopt when that 6th dwelling came along. In this instance, I can't give you a reason as to why that's happened, but it's not relevant to the decision of this application. You must be very clear that you're being asked to assess a planning application for an extension to a lawful dwelling, and is that extension acceptable in design, amenity, character? That's the question in front of you today. What we are trying to do going forward, as Councillor Halls rightly pointed out, is that we are trying to set in our highway design guide a commitment that says, if you come forward in Kirklees and you want to have private drives, well, if you have more than 5 dwellings on that, we would seek to adopt for all the reasons the residents have outlined before. But that's background issue. It's not germane to the decision. The decision here is about the extension to an existing house.
Right, it's been moved and seconded, and I've had a couple against, but to move against, but you'll vote against it if that's the case. So we don't need another proposition. All we need to do is, if you don't want it, you vote against it. If you want it, you'll vote for it. It's just black and white. So I'll go to the vote now. All those in favour of officer's recommendation, please show. All those against?
6-4. 2 against.
Abstentions?
Applications approved.
Page 95. 10 Quarry Court, Longwood.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Callum Harrison and I'm the planning officer responsible for this case at 10 Quarry Court. Members visited the site earlier today. Here are a few photos of the site. So that is the existing block plan of location with 12 Quarry Court to the south-east and 8 Quarry Court to the north-west. There is a photo of the side where this extension relates to. Here is the rear where the extension also relates to. This is a photo of the changed levels of the site. And here is where you can see the relation between number 12 and number 10, Quarry Court. The application relates to an erection of a single-storey side and rear extension in a wraparound formation. The extension is to be on the south-east side and south-west facing rear elevations. This would see the patio raised also. The extension will be located close to number 12 Quarry Court, whilst the rear extension can be seen from number 8 Quarry Court. Number 10 Quarry Court and its neighbours either side were constructed as a set of 3 dwellings under a 1991 application, and notably they are closely located. The next photo shows you that the extension shall form additional living space by extending the kitchen and dining rooms. The patio shall be raised by 50 centimetres in order to create a constant floor level throughout the house and the extension. The materials proposed are to match the host dwelling in its entirety with natural stone walls, concrete tiles for the roof and brown UPVC for the windows and doors. This application has been assessed by planning officers that on balance is acceptable and conforms to policies set out within the UDP, the draft local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. Whilst the proposed extension will be set 7 metres from the principal elevation of number 12, it would appear that there are no habitable rooms within this elevation, which reduces the ability for the proposed extension to be overbearing, as does its single-storey nature and the change in levels. The final photo shows you that it is noted that the extension is at an angle and will face towards number 8 Quarry Court. However, this is at an oblique angle. Secondary to this, a separation distance of 9 metres from the conservatory to the proposed extension and the presence of a boundary fence somewhat preserves the residential amenity of number 8, despite the difference in levels and the proposed patio increase. However, it is noted that the 2-metre fence already constructed between the two properties does not obscure the full view of the conservatory at number 8 and the proposed extension at number 10. The final set of amendments, which has been determined today, received 6 representations, of which were all against. Thank you, Chair.
We have Susie Hellowell.
Good afternoon, Chair and Councillors. I have lived at 12 Quarry Court for 26 years, and my principal elevation faces the plot, and despite the window formations, this is still without any doubt the principal entrance to my home, and the extension will sit 6 metres from my doorstep. The foundations of my garage sit extremely close to the boundary, as does the associated driveway, and the proposal involves significant works and deep excavation along and way below the foundations on this boundary. Our properties sit on different levels, so any modifications could result in undue stress to existing foundations and ultimately result in subsidence or other significant impacts. No level of security has been offered to clarify how the applicant intends to counter the impacts this extension and raised footpath could have upon the structural integrity of all surfaces and built form associated with my land. And whilst I accept that disruption and construction are temporary, this site literally sits on my doorstep with an access limited to a narrow footpath, most of which would be swallowed up in the development. Yet again, no documentation has been offered to show how the applicant intends to provide any access for, like excavation machinery, or for the regular delivery of transportation or building materials. My drive is not a point of access. We have even witnessed builders querying with the applicant the feasibility of building within this plot, saying that during construction, the side border of our land would collapse and be lost, along with our shrubs and our fence, due to his excavation works. And he was also informed that scaffolding would have to go along our driveway, directly in front of our principal door. The points I am trying to illustrate are, firstly, if the applicant can't provide the space to host scaffolding or to put necessary reinforcement works associated with the boundary in place, doesn't that conclude that the plot just isn't big enough or suitable for the plans? Secondly, there needs to be an assurance that, as well as adhering to planning policy and development plans, that a proposal can actually be implemented and delivered. Fundamentally,
30 seconds.
Isn't that a consideration at the heart of all planning proposals, the balance of policy alongside implementation? To conclude, if you have any doubts whatsoever whether this proposal could be safely implemented within the parameter of the applicant's own land without causing compromise or damage, I ask you to kindly vote refusal of this application, and I support my neighbours at number 8 in their representation. Thank you very much for your time.
That's it. Good afternoon to Chair and to all the members of the Planning Committee, and thank you for this opportunity to voice my objection to this planning application. As the owner and permanent resident of number 12 Curry Court, I would just like to place on record that this application for a single-storey extension to number 10 is rather misleading both on plan and in description. The extension will have a vaulted ceiling in line with the existing garage, as you've probably seen this morning, and it will measure 4 metres in height, and as you know, that's nearly 14 feet. This takes the external size to within 5 stone courses of the existing eaves of number 10, which is well in excess of the normal perception of the height of a single-storey building. With this side extension facing the principal elevation to my property, it's got to have a more significant, oppressive, intrusive impact upon my home, with my front door opening onto an oversized wall, which is only 6 metres away from my doorstep. It's far too close, it's far too high. The construction of this extension would also be a great worry to the members of my family, with the near impossible practicalities of building without affecting the land and property of my number 12. Excavations alongside the principal elevation of my property and garage would be a very serious concern and should be examined in detail before any decision is made. Such examination should include the essential resiting of the existing water and sewage waste pipes, for which the inspection manhole currently lies under the proposed extension. In view of the above, may I suggest to you all that any decision on the granting of this application be coupled with a consultation with building control, as it is my opinion that without any caveats being imposed by building control on the construction and excavations that would be involved in this work, the possibilities of damage, injury, trespass and legal conflicts would likely occur. Also, the applicant will have to initiate the Party Wall Act in view of the proximity and depth of the necessary excavations below the foundations level of our house and garage. If there's any doubt in your mind as to the viability of this proposal, I would request your approval. And thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you. Refusal. I was so, you know. I was skipping.
Yeah. You know me very well.
Chris Norton.
Chair, fellow councillors, I would like to state during this process there has never been any consultation from the residents of number 10. I would like to draw your attention to the inaccuracies in the submitted plans, which gives the impression there is more room to develop the site than there actually is. From your visit, hopefully you can better appreciate the reality and the reasons for our objection to the proposal extension in its current angled format. A detailed survey we commissioned several years ago highlights several major discrepancies in the plans as submitted. For example, the chimneys have been omitted from both properties, so it appears that there is room for the applicant to construct a path. In reality, there is only 50 centimetres in the width to pass the chimneys without trespass onto our land. The property spacings between number 10s and number 12 is also much narrower than shown. The rear garden is also smaller than shown on the plans due to the fact that the angle of the road is drawn incorrectly, which sets number 10 further down the plot, and a retaining wall had to be built well inside the boundary at the rear. These actual differences in relationships between number 8 and number 10 also accentuates the loss of our privacy. The plot is also much narrower than is shown, and if the construction is allowed in its current format, then approximately 75% of the existing plot would now be covered by hard materials and would appear overdeveloped in contrast to the surrounding properties. All these inaccuracies only ever show the scale of the extension in an advantageous light. The difference in the ground levels between number 8 and number 10 are not obvious from the information supplied. This greatly concerns me, as I understand not all the requested documents regarding relative ground and site levels have been provided to this committee. This, I believe, is outside the spirit of cooperation and fair process, and leads me to think that the information contained in the cross-sectional views must have been detrimental to this proposal. Without this crucial information, any impact assessment previously performed by the planning people on the effect of our property to this committee cannot have been fully informed. Concerns expressed by us and attempts for an acceptable compromise on the wedge profile by case planning officers were simply rebuffed. In our view, that the inaccuracy in the submissions on all the applicants are essential to a fair planning process, and when planning officials request additional information due to a witnessed concern, then it is essential that this be provided to both recommendations before recommendations and decisions are made. We both fully support the specific issues of our residents at number 12. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We have Nikki Norton.
Yeah, thanks. Chair and fellow councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. Numbers 8, 10 and 12, Quarry Court, have all been cleverly positioned on their plots with different sight lines and garage configurations to maximise the use of limited land while maintaining privacy and celebrating the glorious views we all have. The views and private outside space were major factors when we bought the house in 1992. The wedge-shaped addition would result in significant overlooking of our garden and conservatory by allowing the creation of opposing habitable windows at a distance of less than 9 metres, which is far less than the 12 metres required for new developments. Currently, there are no significant opposing habitable windows on this development at all, so this would be a departure from the original scheme. The bifold doors may be set at an oblique angle to our property, but indoor seating will not be positioned at this angle. Instead, it will be placed along the outer wall, providing a direct line of sight over our plot, prejudicing our residential amenity all year round. Therefore, I would argue that the separation distance plus the angle are not sufficient mitigation to prevent detrimental impact and unnecessary intrusion and blight on our property. Hopefully you can fully appreciate the impact on our property following the site visit this morning. The level of the newly raised patio would be at least 1.2 metres above our ground level and approximately level with our conservatory windowsills. This means that the screening effect from a maximum 2 metre high fence would be negligible to all, apart from a small child. For all the above reasons, I don't believe the detrimental impact on our property is either mitigated, acceptable or even necessary, and would appreciate your support in this matter. So, following on from earlier discussion, re Halfway House, and bearing in mind we've had no discussions with the neighbours, if you are minded to pass the extension, then a reasonable compromise for all parties would be to square off that rear extension, which would maintain the original south-facing aspect and sight lines, This would mean that all three houses can continue to enjoy the glorious views without anybody losing their privacy and residential amenity. If you are minded to pass the extension in the current wedge-shaped format, we'd be grateful if you would consider the addition of conditions such as frosted glass in the opposing habitable windows and any other suitable permanent screening solutions for the bifold doors. We've always tried to be fair to our neighbours regarding privacy by keeping the conservatory blinds closed, and it would be nice to see this being reciprocated, even through the use of additional conditions. Thank you for listening.
Councillor Richards? No, you're next.
Afternoon, councillors. This is, in a way, it's very sad that the neighbours are not very happy about this, but if you went on the site visit today, you'll have noticed what stunning properties they are and what stunning views have been built into that, to where the various houses are positioned. With something like that, though, you are talking about terrific heights. I'd not like to be a slate around there. It's a bit dodgy, isn't it? But you have the view straight over the valleys. If you actually deliver this extension, you will actually have, instead of someone looking that way straight into your house. And because of the difference in levels, it will make quite an impact on you. So if you end up being mindful to actually accept this application, I would hope that you add in a stipulation that says there has to be obscured glass both at the sides and that payment is made to obscure number 8's glass as well. Because at the moment they pull a blind down so that they're not intruding. So there should be some compensation for that. What worries me as well is the fact that there's going to be, if this is passed, a lot of building work, and there is not much space to get stuff along the, round to the back. It also worries me that there's ironworks for sewage actually as part of it's on this property and will be covered up. I'm not sure how that will pan out as regards access, but it's got to be put into the equation. So basically, I hope you'll think very, very carefully about this and work out what is actually possible and can be provided. Yes, I know. You've just put me up nicely. No, basically, think about this. It isn't going to be an easy build. If you can't have scaffolding on number 12's property, how are they going to actually get that put in? There are practicalities as well as the fact that I think you've got to look at the needs of each of the neighbours, not just the one that's asking for the change. So think about your stipulations as well as whether you're willing to give it a chance or not. Thank you. I'll leave now before I get thrown out.
We have one more speaker, and that's Matthew Jack, who's acting on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. As you're aware, the new proposals included single-storey side extension and a rear extension as a wraparound to an existing detached dwelling set within a modern residential development. The dwelling has not been altered or extended since its original construction in 1990. The proposed extension will provide a new kitchen diner positioned behind the existing garage and will be hidden from the street. The proposed extension will echo the shape of the existing garage roof and will be built using natural stone walls and concrete roof tiles. This is to match existing. The side elevation will be blank to provide privacy for the neighbours, whereas the rear elevation will be mostly glass to take advantage of the fantastic views to the south. The three houses on the street, number 8, number 10 and number 12, were almost designed identically and had just sat differently on their individual plots. Just regarding number 8, this house has an additional large conservatory to the rear, which we know, and this has a similar footprint to what my client is proposing with his extension. This gives a precedent for the scale of the proposal of what we're proposing. The angle of the rear elevation we feel does not prejudice number 8. The rear elevation is simply angled that way to for my client to give adequate supervision for their children when they're playing in the garden. Otherwise it would be facing onto the existing patio. The patio has been carefully positioned at the furthest point away from the boundary, and this again is to minimise any impact on number 8. The planning officer has deemed this acceptable and considered this. Regarding number 12, you will have noticed that all habitable rooms within number 12 face the rear garden of the property. The proposed extension will only be visible from the washrooms and the utility, of which many of the windows are obscure glazed anyway. Great care has been taken to ensure that no windows or doors in the side wall of the extension, and which may have been seen to compromise the neighbour's sense of privacy. The planning officer has also deemed the impact on number 12 acceptable.
30 seconds.
In summary, my client has reduced the original scheme to a very sympathetic scale, which ensures that there will be no loss of residential amenity to the neighbouring property. The planning officer's report is clear about this, and approval is being recommended. My client wishes no disharmony on the neighbours, but we feel that their views have been grossly exaggerated in this instance. Thank you.
Members. Councillor.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming. We do really appreciate that you've come in. I do understand you've got obviously some concerns. I would say personally, I'm okay with this, but I do understand you've got concerns, and I think particularly the property, is it number 12? It's very close to your side. That is quite clear. And the lady made a good point. I mean, I don't know in terms of design standards, but about the squaring off, and I don't know if that's an option that could be considered at all. I thought that was a fair point that she raised.
We did approach the applicant and their agent about squaring it off, but they wanted a decision on the plans that have been submitted in front of you today.
Yeah, a lot of the objections are not valid planning reasons to turn it down. So, example, way you build it, it's not the concern of how it's done. But having said that, I have major concerns that it's been an overdevelopment of the plot, and I have major concerns of how much of the garden is taken up. And I do, having been there, there is supposed to be a path that goes down the side, and I'm wondering how that would fit in with the width of the building. I take the note of what the planner said about the next door neighbour having a conservatory. Well, that probably would be the ideal solution, having a conservatory. So I move to refuse this application on the grounds of overdevelopment. Thank you.
Any further? Yes, you wish to speak, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chair.
I have no objections in principle to this planning application, and to counter the last speaker, I will move to accept officer's recommendation. A couple of things to cover. There are some issues here that are non-material, like the raising of the patio. That is down to building control. I think there was a speaker here who mentioned the relationship with building control. Access, I presumed they were going to knock out the back of the garage and gain access that way. Just a guess. But again, equally, we'd expect perhaps the applicant to reassure their neighbours that everything would be done and all insurances were in place. When it comes to conditions, though, I think what I'd like to see is we have sort of withdraw permitted development rights for any further windows. Now, I think that probably needs to be a bit more general. We've said it's the maximum size that it can be, and I'd say, yeah, let's have permitted development rights withdrawn completely, and let's be specific about that. It's probably in the wording anyway. I just wanted to say it here. Okay. So the windows that are in the skylights in the extension, I understand the design kind of brief that they want light, as much light in there as possible. That's okay, but they must be obscured, I think, by condition. Thank you, Chair. So it's moved. Thank you.
Right. I'd like to second Councillor McGuinn's proposition to refuse. I do believe that this is a quart in a pint pot. Not only that, it's the middle building. It's the middle building of the three, and it's squeezed in anyway. So to put more in there, I just do not see it. I'm sorry. So it's overbuilding in my estimation. Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I disagree with the refusal, to be honest. When you look at this and you put your measurement on the sight lines and that, the extension when it's built, it's still behind plot number 8, and plot number 10 is still in front of the new extension there. And when you look at the conservatory that's built on number 8, that sticks out a fair amount, way more than whatever this extension will stick out. It is a constrained site, I admit that, but it's doable, and it's doable, I think, with proper building control, and there's room for scaffolding as well. And on these sort of sites, they'll have to get deliveries in at the right time and put them in the right place so as not to annoy neighbours. But it is doable. And I think with building control, they'll make sure that the foundations, and I can't see those foundations going so deep, to be honest, for that size of building. So with building control putting the condition on and checking them, I can't see any reason why this development shouldn't take place. So I move that we accept our planner's recommendation, with obviously the permitted development lights, I think, taken away so they can have no more, and obscure windows in the top there, because they will be overlooking from the house higher up the valley, up the side of it, so that needs the obscure glass. But other than that, I can't see a big lot of problem with it. Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Ruppel, and then followed by Councillor.
Sorry, Chair. I didn't catch everything Ken said there because I was just having a bit of think in my head there. I don't know if you mentioned... Did you mention the squaring off as well, Ken? No. Well, for me, I'm just trying to think, rather than us just refusing it totally, I don't know if there's a deferral we could do on this, just to consider things like the frosting, were you saying? Yeah. Potentially the squaring off of it. I don't know if we can discuss that again with the applicant. Just a thought, just so we can try and get something between the both of yous.
We've got a mixed bag now, haven't we? we've got just about all three. We have got a refusal proposed and seconded, but we've also had a move for acceptance for it.
Can I just summarise then? At the moment, we've got a mover and a seconder for refusal. We've got a mover and a seconder for officers' recommendation, plus 2 extra conditions relating to frosted glass and removal of PD rights. And it sounds as if Councillor Uppall is thinking of suggesting a deferral to go back to officers to square it off, whatever that means, to new plans to square it off. So that's where we are at the moment.
Yes, Councillor Hall, perhaps you can.
I think there is a few points that could be thrown back for a bit of negotiation, because it looks as though there's been none whatsoever on this application. One is I also agree with what Councillor Lawson says about development rights, and I also agree with whoever it was that mentioned about frosted glass as well. So that's why I put forward I support deferral.
In that case, I'll use my role as chair and say I'll put deferment to the committee. All those in favour of deferment, please show. And I'll go with that, Mr. Against?
One again.
Applications deferred.
Chair, can we just clarify? So we're going away as officers now to speak to the applicant and say, we have asked them if they'll square off the extension. We'll ask them again. We will get the plans updated to have frosted glass on the roof, lights. We'll look at the glazing in the front of the rear extension and see if that needs any frosting or not. And we'll touch base on building control to give some comfort on what would happen, but it's not a planning issue.
We've had a case at Dewsbury, I think you know about it, Matthias, where there were a construction plan had to be put in place because that were working behind houses that were already there. It was a bit of a nightmare. There might be ways around that, but that's that one. I'd just like to know if there's a construction plan for this one so that it puts the neighbours, it doesn't harm them, you know, where it's not necessarily that kind of thing. As much disruption as possible.
Right, we'll move on then. Page 107, which is Newsham Mills, Lewis Street, Newsham.
Thank you, Chair. As this is an application for discharge of condition 3 of a previous listed building consent, members may recall that in May last year, listed building consent was granted, but subject to a request from committee that a condition be attached requiring a method statement over how the debris will be cleared from inside the mill at the request of local residents. We have now received such a discharge of condition. I'll bring you now the method statement. You may recall that in November 2016 the mill was subject to a catastrophic fire, and due to health and safety issues the fire brigade requested that the upper floors of the mill be pushed inwards inside the mill to prevent damage to surrounding property and life. So within the wall that you see now, which is boarded up, is a substantial amount of debris which contains fire damaged rubble, timbers and cast iron columns. The material cannot be used for building purposes because it's what we call pinked, which means it's no longer got the structural strength. The site does need to be cleared to allow further surveys to be carried off, for future development, and also it's a health and safety hazard because people are getting in and out the mill to try and retrieve the rubble for whatever purposes they wish. Following the committee decision, we've entered into negotiation with the applicant to seek a properly qualified contractor to come forward with a method statement. What the method statement looks to do is to secure a means of access to the site, which will be through a former opening to the back. Now, it's immediately adjacent to the clock tower, which you'll see in this location there. And the back wall, where say the entrance point is currently just a frame, a steel frame with breeze block inserts. That frame allowed access to the rear of the mill many moons ago when it was in operation, but that part of the building was demolished in the late 90s. So they create an access point by removing a section of breeze block, which will allow access within the building. As you'll see, there is an access point to be created off Hart Street, which will allow the machinery to enter the site and turn round, and also to allow the sort of contractors' wagons to get in there. Phase 2 is to remove the rubble within the weaver's cottage. That at the moment is just sat there, it's not doing anything, it's not as in as much condition as the other one. So that will be phase 2 and be carried out subsequently after phase 1. The machinery is to be tracked diggers and tracked excavators and using small-scale dumper trucks to get in and out of the building. One other concern was that the existing walls around the building needed to be protected and to ensure that they did not collapse while the works were being carried out. In the areas of the walls, as I say, there's 3 walls, there and there, that will be carried out by hand to enable the walls to be monitored. And should they start to become unstable, work will cease until they can be shored up. Finally, there was a request that any material which could be used for future development, i.e. lintels with architectural detailing or the cast iron columns, should be stored. They have said that there will be a suitable storage area, which we'll see at the back of the site, which will be secured by a padlocked fence, and any material which we can keep will be stored in there. So they've come back to us with the recommendation of a method statement, which follows the request of the committee. It's necessary to allow further works to be carried out to ensure that this site is developed for future use. So my recommendation to the committee is that the condition is discharged. Thank you.
Members, somebody move over. You wish to speak, Councillor Sims?
Yeah, move it, Chair, because this has gone on long enough up there. It wants tidied up, you know. For goodness sake, it's gone on 30 or 40 years to my knowledge. If somebody is brave enough to go in there and sort it out, let's get it done, and let's get that place sorted out. Thank you.
To speak, Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. Agree with Councillor Sims. Yes, it needs sorting out. It needs sorting out safely, and the remnants of the Grade 1 listed structures need preserving as much as possible. Glad to hear about the monitoring. Does that extend to the clock tower as well, the movement monitoring? Just that through you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, you're quite right. It includes the clock tower, which is actually freestanding. It looks like it's attached, but it isn't, and that's why they've gone to enter into that point, because that's the least point going to wave the wall. If you've got a waggle on the wall from going further in, then that might impact upon the clock tower. So you're quite right, Councillor, that's a good point. It will be monitored throughout by a structural engineer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In that case, yes, second this. Thank you.
I take it I can't second it, although Councillor Ola did put his hand up, but I don't know if he wants to say anything. No. Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment. I completely agree. Something really does need doing. But also, can we make sure that that secure space is secure and it's not just a fence and a padlock? Because I would have thought that's not really of a secure fence and a padlock seems a bit unsecure. I think it needs a bit more security than that. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, yes, we'll ensure that it's a properly secured site. As you quite rightly point out, Councillor, it has had security issues in the past and continues to do so. In some respects, it may be more obvious where stored material is because you've got a compound, but we will ensure that it is secure and that nothing is stolen from it as best we can. Thank you.
Recommendation, please. Yeah, all those in favour? Thank you.
Approved.
Finally, page 113, 54 Brockholes Lane, Brockholes.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for a replacement dwelling. It's brought to committee as the applicant is related to a member of the planning department. The application for replacement dwelling is sought because the host building was subject to a vehicle impact, as shown on the photograph in front of you. That vehicle impact made the building structurally unsound and had to be and has now subsequently been demolished. That's the site that was remained. The building's now been demolished, as I say, and the proposal is for a replacement dwelling which is slightly larger than the building that previously occupied the site. It's about half a metre taller and now includes provision of 2 dormer windows on the front and a centrally positioned door. Officers are comfortable with the proposal and have recommended it for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just, I move it? Would somebody prepare to second it? Yeah, all in favour? Thank you. That concludes the meeting. Thank you.